We are live. Good evening, Total Fitness Bodybuilders. Lee Hayward here with the Total Fitness Bodybuilding video chat for Friday, February the 9th. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you joining into our video chat. And I just want to make sure that this is coming through loud and clear. So as you're popping onto our live stream, please let me know if this is coming through loud and clear on your end, if you can hear me and see me. And also let me know if you're watching live, right? As you're tuning in, if you are watching live, just type a hashtag live down there in the comments or over there in the video chat window, wherever it is that you're watching from, because we are streaming from both YouTube as well as Facebook. So if you're on YouTube, it's a chat window. If you're on Facebook, it's probably a comment section below the video. Whichever one is working for you, let me know. Just a comment hashtag live if you're catching the video live, and if you're watching the replay afterwards, you can also let me know and just type a hashtag replay down in the comments below the video if you're watching afterwards, because I know we have an international audience and some people can't make the live streams, but a lot of people do catch up on the replay afterwards. So it just kind of gives me an idea of who's participating, who's actually taking in these video chats. All right, so let's see. We have J.E. is joining in from California. Welcome. We have Nick joining in. Hey, Robert's joining in. How are things over in California, by the way? I've seen on the news a lot of flooding in the Los Angeles area. Some of my coaching students are in that area, actually. Loud and clear. Thank you much. Appreciate it. We have Lee over in the UK saying loud and clear. Much appreciated. Dave is joining. Okay, Dave's got a question. We'll jump into that now in a moment. Just want to get everybody popping onto the live stream first before we jump into the Q&A. And for those of you who are regulars, you know how this works. I'm going to be answering questions. But for those of you who are brand new and probably have never tuned into one of these live streams before, the way it works is I'm going to be hanging out for the next hour, answering questions and topics of discussion related to fitness and nutrition, health and wellness, any specific challenges that you are dealing with when it comes to fitness, nutrition, your workouts, building muscle, losing fat, any specific challenges at all. Feel free to type those questions and topics of discussion into the chat window or into the comments, and I'll do the best that I can to help you out over the course of our video chat today. And I always say this, I know I've been in the fitness industry now for over 30 years, so I've learned a few things along the way, but I don't claim to be a know-it-all. So if I can help you with your questions and issues or challenges that you're going through, then by all means, I'll do my best to help you out. But if I can't, I'm not going to give you any false hope or BS, but I will try and point you in the right direction to somebody who can help, because I have a large network of friends and colleagues in the fitness industry. So if I'm not qualified or I don't have the answer to your questions or challenges, I probably could hook you up with someone who can help you out. That's what I'm trying to say. There we go. So let's see who else we have. Bruce is joining in. Bruce is a member of our Muscle After 40 program from Jasper. Glad to have you joining in. Adrian, also a member of our VIP coaching group. Welcome, Adrian. Hey, coach. Hey, how's it going? He's in Orlando. Who else we have joining in? We've got Vigila Aternus from Wisconsin. We have Dave from the UK. Welcome, guys. Glad to have you joining in. All right. So again, for those of you popping on, if you do have any questions or topics of discussion, feel free to type those into our video chat, and I will do the best I can to help you out. While I'm waiting for people to post in their questions and topics, there's a couple things that I'd like to address, and it's things that I've noticed that kind of was an interesting surprise, if you will, over the past several weeks. I've really noticed this because one of the things that I do, I do a lot of online coaching, like we're doing right now through these live video streams, but I also have a private VIP coaching group where I take people through our Muscle After 40 Blueprint program. And I do a lot of virtual coaching, but I also do one-on-one coaching in the gym as well. And it's just really come to my attention recently of how little exercise you need to make progress. And this is a good thing, especially for those of you who are getting back to the gym after a layoff, or maybe you're starting from scratch. Maybe this is brand new. And a lot of times people are overwhelmed with thinking like, this is going to be such a big time commitment. It's going to take so much time and effort, and I don't have the time to work out, and they get overwhelmed with it. But it's amazing how A little bit of consistency can compound over time. And I'm going to use an example of some of my personal coaching students, people that I'm working with one-on-one in the gym. And a lot of these people are mature people. They're not like 20-something-year-olds. They're people in their late 30s, in some of their 40s, 50s, 60s. I've even had people in their 70s, right? Like some of them, they're a more mature group of folks that I'm coaching. And it's amazing to see, even at those ages, 50 plus, and averaging about 2 workouts a week, right? Like that's what's, when I look at the overall average, a lot of people are just getting in 2 workouts. Now, we normally strive for 3, but it's winter. We have snow days and life throws challenges and curveballs, and sometimes things get off track. And so a lot over the past winter, a lot of my coaching students have only been averaging about 2 workouts a week. But surprisingly, they've been getting stronger with those 2 workouts, right? And it's just interesting to know. Like, I keep track of everybody's workouts when we're going through it. And I always strive to train in a progressive overload fashion, just gradually pushing them when they're able to do so. When they're able to complete all their exercises, sets and reps with good form by themselves, without their form breaking down. And then we just train in that progressive overload fashion. And it's amazing to see the strength gains week after week after week, even if you're only getting into the gym a couple times. So this is actually a good thing, especially for folks who are either coming back to the gym after a layoff, or if you're brand new and you're kind of feeling overwhelmed, thinking like, well, I can't commit to working out every day, or, I don't have the time, or you don't have to do it every day. Like, if you could literally commit 2 days a week, right, and just focus on that and follow a proven system 2 days a week, it's amazing the progress you can make. And I've even seen this with folks in their 50s and beyond, right? Week after week after week, setting personal records in the gym. And it's exciting to see. And then, of course, that carries over into their day-to-day life. They're feeling stronger and more mobile in just their day-to-day tasks, whether that's running up and down the stairs, chasing their kids around, doing physical chores and work, shoveling snow, whatever. Or maybe if they have physical demanding jobs, carrying boxes and moving things around. Like, they're just able to do stuff so much better and more efficiently the stronger they get. And again, it's amazing that even 2 workouts a week is enough to make progress. Now, could it be better? Heck yeah, it could be better. We could scale it up and that, but all that matters is progress over perfection. I mean, it's nice to see that it doesn't take this massive time commitment that a lot of people think it does, right? You don't have to be in the gym 6 days a week, 2 hours a day, right? If you can commit 2 days a week, you can make this work. All right, so I just wanted to share that with you. All right, so we have a lot of people popping on now. Lots of questions coming through. Let's jump right into it. What else we have? We have Richard from Iowa. Happy Friday to you, my friend. We have Steven joining in. Hey. We have Craig joining in live. Welcome, Craig. Awesome. Glad to have you joining us, folks. Now let's jump in. I think Dave was the guy who had the first question. Here we go. Dave Harris says, I tweaked my lower back today doing deadlifts. Ouch. He says, do you have any tips, advice, how to perform the deadlift safely and with good form? Thanks for the chat videos and then sharing your knowledge. That's when you say you tweaked your back, you can tweak your back or pull or strain it even if you did everything right. So it's just the fact that you've injured yourself doesn't necessarily mean that you did something wrong. Now, it could be, and a lot of times injuries are the result of doing something wrong, but not always. Like, sometimes things just happen, and it's weird how this can work. I was actually having this conversation with one of my coaching students, because a lot of times you could be in the gym and you could push yourself hard and not have any injuries, or maybe even do something spectacular. Like, I remember back when I was skiing, when I was younger, and I used to do downhill skiing. Sometimes you'd have this spectacular wipeout, head over heels, going down the slopes, and you'd get up and you dust yourself off in best kind. And then you may do the simplest, stupidest thing, like bend over to tie your shoes, and like, oh shit, there goes the back, right? I remember while this was a few years back, I bent over to clip my toenails with the nail clippers. And as I bent over to clip my toenails, pop, like just whatever. I just twisted, pulled a muscle in my back or impinged a nerve or something. But my back was hurting for like a couple weeks after. And the grand injury was bending over to clip my toenails, right? So sometimes weird stuff happens. So again, you tweaked your back. Hopefully it's just something minor. Maybe you just pulled it the wrong way, maybe impinged a nerve or something, and it should ease up on its own within a week or so, or less, hopefully. But usually, sometimes when you do have a tweak, it takes at least a week. That rhymes. We could use that. If you have a tweak, it's going to take at least a week. So, that's kind of the ballpark guideline. But I want you to be very careful with this, because obviously if your back is hurting, you're going to have to try and find ways to work around it. So no direct lower back work for a while. Like with your exercises, probably focus primarily like low impact cardio, machine exercises where you're not straining your lower back. So for example, if you're going to do any back exercises like overhead pulls, like a lat pull down, maybe some lightweight chest supported rows or something like that, but nothing that's going to strain that lower back area and bring that into play. As far as technique for the deadlifts, I do have some technique videos showing how to perform the deadlift. If you do a YouTube search, you better find it, but I'll just do a quick one here, and I'll post it into our chat window here now. If I go to Lee Hayward deadlift technique, and probably I can't remember the exact title of the video, so I had to find it myself here now. There's a couple of them that I have. There's one in particular. It's a deadlift form critique. It was actually sent in from one of my coaching students I was working with. He sent me in a video of his exercise form, and I broke it down in detail. So I'm just going to for you here now. So I'll post the link into our chat window for you there, Dave. So it's a deadlift form video. I'll just call it that and post the link there. So when this is over, you can go check that out. But that'll break down the overall form. And this is for a conventional deadlift, right? I mean, when it comes to deadlifts, there's numerous ones. Like I actually have a video tutorial explaining like stiff leg deadlift, Romanian deadlift. This particular one here is a conventional deadlift. But yeah, I mean, it'll help you with your technique. And another thing that I would recommend as well, when you do get back to doing deadlifts again, like videotape yourself, right? And compare your video to the video critique that I'm sharing in that link that I just posted. And you can kind of be your own coach. And this is how I actually got into making YouTube videos to begin with, is I was videotaping myself for the purposes of self-coaching. Because I remember I was actually getting ready for powerlifting back. This was back in the early 2000s, before there ever was a YouTube, right? Because YouTube started in 2006. So back in the early 2000s, like it was around 2003, I was pondering the idea of competing in a powerlifting meet. And I heard a lot of the local lifters were saying, you should videotape yourself doing your lifts so that you can watch it back afterwards and critique and see, like, okay, are you doing the lifts with proper form? Like, would your lift pass in a competition? Are you pausing the bar on your chest for your bench press? Are you making depth with your squats? Are you doing your deadlift smooth with no hitching and all this kind of stuff? So I was videotaping, and I had all this video footage on 8mm camcorder. So it wasn't even digital cameras back then. It was 8mm camcorders. That's what I used. And I videotaped myself doing these lifts. And every now and then, if I had hit a personal best lift and I wanted to share it, well, there was a site that came on back in 2006. It was called YouTube, right? And I said, oh, this is a cool place where I can upload a video. So I figured out how to convert a cassette tape video into a digital format and then upload it to the internet. I mean, it wasn't as easy as it is today. And then when YouTube did come along, I was using that just as a video hosting. Like, hey, here's me doing a deadlift, or here's me doing a personal best bench press, or whatever. Like, there was no video editing, nothing like that. But that's how it all got started. It was just me taking selfie videos on a tripod to critique myself for my exercise form. So you could do the same for yourself. Not saying you have to post them on the YouTube if you don't want to, but it's a great teaching tool, right? To watch yourself on video, and you'll be amazed at what you'll learn. Because I was shocked when I started videotaping myself doing exercises, because I thought my form was good. In my mind's eye, I had good form. And then when I watched it back on video, I'm like, I have shitty form. My form sucks, right? And it was a great teaching tool. So I find a lot of people, when they see themselves on video, it's a big eye opener, right? You know, in multiple ways. Like if you're not used to hearing your own voice on video, for example, like when you hear it back, you're like, I don't sound like that. But yeah, you do. Right. So anyway, getting back to it, that's what I would recommend. And again, check out that video tutorial that I just posted a link to. Who else we have there? Let's see. Any other questions? Neil's a regular to our video chats, joining in saying, do you do ab workouts and cardio together with your full body workouts? Do you do them on a separate day? Is this also considered an active rest day? Active rest like on a rest day? Thanks. I usually do abdominal training with my strength training workouts. When I'm doing cardio training, I don't do abdominal training. So for me, like most of my cardio is usually done outdoors. So like I'm not going to, like when I'm out for a bicycle ride, I'm not going to stop on the side of the road and start doing crunches or something like that, right? I'm out riding my bike, or I'm out going hiking, or I'm out doing something, right? I'm not out doing abs. I'm outside doing cardio. I save my ab training for when I'm actually in the gym doing strength training workouts. And I usually do, not always, but more often than not, I usually do some form of abdominal training with each workout. For me, it's usually a finisher. Right? I finish off with some abdominal work at the end of a workout, and I find like that's usually adequate for my needs. If you really want to prioritize your abs, you could probably do it at the start of your workout, you know. But like in my situation, like have reasonably developed abdominals, like as far as mass goes. Like I'm not trying to build more muscle mass in the midsection, so it's kind of one of those areas I'm happy to just maintain the strength that I have in my core, right? Like especially the direct abdominals per se, you know. So I'm not going to prioritize that. So I'll usually just do a finishing exercise at the end, and I'll change it up. Like today, when I was at the gym, my abdominal exercise of choice was the ab wheel rollout. That's what I did. Other days, it might be decline bench sit-ups, it might be leg raises, it might be planks, might be using some of the different abdominal machines that they have at the gym. You know, I'll mix and match it up, right? So, but I always usually do my abs with my strength training workouts, and I'll do it as with literally every strength training workout. I'll do it like a finisher. Just usually I'll pick one exercise and then I'll vary it, do a different ab exercise each time. And that works for me. That's fine. Now, again, if you want to prioritize your abs, then you can dedicate, you know, a full ab workout to it. I know there was a while where I was actually doing that. It was actually interesting because it was one of the gyms that I was training at. This was way back in the day now, back in the early 2000s. They had a group class, and I can't even remember what they called it now. But bottom line, it was an abdominal training group class. And 45 minutes, ultimate abs, I think they used to call it, the ultimate abs class or something like that. And for 45 minutes, you just do dedicated abdominal work, right? So like all kinds of different sit up and leg raise and plank variations and things like that. And you just be, you know, basically doing an ab day, just like you go into the gym. Okay, I'm going to do chest day, leg day, back day. Well, this was ab day, and it was a structured workout program. And man, like I did that for like 12 weeks, and I noticed some serious improvement in my just the strength and core in the strength in the core, and also just the definition as well. So you can prioritize your abs if it is an area that you've been neglecting and you want to prioritize. But once you get them built up to a certain level, like most people are content. Like the abs are not a muscle that you want to just keep building bigger, right? You want bigger arms, you want bigger chest, you want bigger lats or something like that, but you don't necessarily want bigger abs. You just want to have a nice defined midsection. So there kind of comes a point of diminishing returns in a way when it comes to ab training. Like you just need to do enough to get the job done and then to sustain it. And then of course the big one is losing the body fat that's covering the abs, right? That's the big one right there. But as far as the actual training itself, you know, once you have a certain level of muscle development, it's okay to kind of just maintain. And that's where I'm at right now. So hopefully that helps. Who else we got there joining in? Bruce got a question there. Any ideas for body weight cardio that I can do in my tiny camp room? It's too cold. slash wild for me to go for walks here, trying to get a peddler, but I have limited funds. Okay. Now I'm friends with Bruce. I know what the situation he's going through. So Bruce works in a camp up, I think he's in Alberta now. I mean, I know it varies depending on where their job site is, but right now he's in a tiny camp, as he mentioned, up in the middle of nowhere, right up northern Canada, in the middle of the sticks. And of course, it's cold and it's dark and there's wildlife and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, you don't want to be out, especially after work, which would be dark and everything else. So, yeah, you don't want to be out, get eaten by the animals in the northern Canadian wilderness. So yeah, what can you do for cardio? There's a lot of stuff you can do. I mean, you can go on YouTube and like old-fashioned aerobics type workouts, jumping jacks and all these different calisthenic body weight exercises. And it doesn't have to be the high intensity stuff, just basically moving. I know it might feel a bit weird, but like literally go on YouTube and start searching for like follow along. I'll have to search for myself and see exactly what to look for, but workouts, just body weight exercise workouts, follow along workouts. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that you could do. Like even if you did body weight strength training, I mean, that's a great way, but it's not necessarily cardio. It's more intense than cardio. But like you could do a circuit of push-ups and squats and ab work and things like that. But again, you are getting a cardiovascular benefit from it, but it's too high intensity to be considered true cardio. Cardio should be something that's you're working and moving your body, but you're not fatiguing yourself, like that you can sustain for at least a half an hour or more. Whereas body weight exercises, you can't. Like nobody's going to like do push-ups nonstop for a half hour or more, unless you're some beast freak of nature. Most people are not going to be able to do that. That's strength training. So you want to do some lower intensity work, but things that are just keeping your body moving. And again, it could be like step ups and jumping jacks and just moving around. Right? I just thought of this. Go Google search Richard Simmons dancing to the oldies or sweating to the oldies and stuff. I'm telling you, like as stupid as that is a damn good workout. I mean, if you actually did it. And the reason why I mentioned that is because I remember several years back, I dressed up as Richard Simmons for a Halloween costume. And we went to like a Halloween party afterwards. And I said, well, I got to act the character. So in the week leading up to Halloween that year, all right, I had my costume and everything else. And I was actually watching his videos. And I said, well, I got to start to learn the moves. So when we go to the Halloween party, I can actually get in character and, become a modern day Richard Simmons sweating to the oldies. And I actually did some of those workouts. And I mean, my wife and I, we got a kick out of it and we were laughing and having fun just doing it. But it was a legitimate workout. Like afterwards, I was breathing heavy. I was soaked with sweat. I'm like, this is hard. Like as stupid as it is, it was actually a hard workout. Now, I know it doesn't seem very macho or manly or whatever, but hey, it was a hard workout, and it's from a calorie burning, fat burning, cardiovascular benefits. I mean, it had it all covered, right? It's legit, and no special equipment required. Just you being willing to move and do it. So there's ways around it. That's all I'm saying. Now, the only thing is, I could see, right? Don't get caught. I mean, I could see Bruce now in his camp room, and someone walks in and says, "What the hell are you doing?" Right? And he's got Richard Simmons on his computer, and Bruce is sweating to the oldies, and putting on a show. People might be, you might lose respect amongst your fellow coworkers, but who knows? But there's ways around it. That's what I'm getting at. All right, moving on. What else we got? Adrian's joining in just a second, guys. I had this question a few weeks ago, actually, but I'll answer it again. What are your thoughts on Mike Mentzer's heavy-duty philosophy? One set to absolute failure, heavy duty. I was a huge fan of Mike Mentzer because back when I started training, like he had columns in all the muscle magazines back in the day. Dorian Yates was the reigning Mr. Olympia back in the early 90s when I started, really getting into bodybuilding. And I was a huge fan of that high intensity approach. So I kind of modeled a lot of my workouts after that. And it can work, right? Like anything that you do consistently can work. Is it the best approach? I don't think so, but it can work. And I'm just going to kind of like share some of the pros and cons of the whole heavy duty, high intensity style of training. One of the advantages is it's very short. So for people who are time crunched and, you don't have all day to spend in the gym, very efficient that way. It's simple, like you got limited number of exercises and all you're trying to do is you're going in there, you're hammering out those exercises. You're trying to get stronger. So the philosophy and the mindset behind the program and actually the time duration and everything else is very simple, right? It's a simple program. That's one thing he has going for him. But the thing that I didn't like about it is once you get past that initial newbie gain phase where it's easy to make gains in the earlier phases, now you're getting up to the more advanced levels and you're really pushing yourself and you got to dig deep to set those personal records. Trying to do so with one set and like get all your muscle stimulation in that one all out set. And then a lot of times people would be incorporating advanced techniques like forced reps or partials or negatives and all that kind of stuff. I find that the risk to reward ratio is kind of loses its favor the deeper you go into that style of training. So the more advanced you get, the heavier weights you're lifting, the more intensity and force you're able to generate, the higher your risk of injury. So that's what I found. And pretty much everybody who follows that style of training is eventually going to have an injury to show for it, right? With very few exceptions. I mean, former Mr. Olympia, Dorian Yates, he's a prime example of that. Like he's been through the meat grinder, right? Rotator cuff issues, torn muscles, elbow issues, like just, he's had his share of injuries. I had my share of injuries. And a lot of times it's training too darn heavy and pushing yourself beyond your limits, right? You're trying to get that maximum intensity. And I think that you would be much better off doing slightly less intensity, but a little bit more volume. So I'll give you an example. Like instead of doing one all out set and taking that to failure and beyond, why not just do 2 sets, right? 2 working sets where you stop at failure or even a rep or so shy of failure. In fact, if you did 2 sets, stopping a rep shy of failure, you actually get more total volume, more total time under tension, probably just as much, if not better, muscle stimulation with a lot less risk of injury. Like instead of taking one set to the absolute limit and risking, to the point where muscles about to tear, like you are pushing and straining at your absolute limit where muscles and tendons and ligaments can actually tear and cause damage. How about you just push to the point where, okay, that was a hard set, but I'm going to live to lift another day. I'm going to end this set, rest a minute, and then I'll do another set if I feel I need a little bit more. And like, that's the way that I go about my training now. Like I usually work up to 1 or 2, sometimes more, maybe 2 to 3 heavy sets of an exercise. I'll train, depending on the exercise, it might be to failure. So if it's a machine exercise where it's safe to rep out to failure, I will push myself to momentary failure. For example, like if I'm doing a leg extension or a bicep curl or a lat pull down or something along those lines, or a chest supported row, I'll train to momentary muscular failure. So the point where my form starts to break down and I can't complete another repetition with good form by myself. And I usually do that with machine exercises because if you can't complete the repetition by yourself, big deal. You just rack the weight. Like if you're doing a lat pull down and you can't get the bar all the way down, okay, I'll just rack it. Big deal. Same thing if I'm doing leg extensions and I can't lock out the leg extension. Okay, big deal. I just let the weight stack down and I'm fine. Now, when it comes to squats or bench presses or overhead presses, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to like squat to the point where I'm stuck in the bottom of a squat. I'm usually going to train heavy, but I want to rack that weight on my own. All right. So I'll leave a rep or 2 in reserve and safely rack that weight on my own. Now I'll still push myself, but I'm not going to go to absolute failure. And then if I feel I need more, so like I racked the heavy set of squats and I say, you know what, I think there's still more in the tank. I feel like it got a little bit more muscle stimulation I'd like to achieve. Then I'll do another set. And then again, more time under tension, more muscle stimulation, more volume. And I feel like it's just as good of a workout with less risk of injury versus trying to push that set of squats to failure and beyond, and then trying to do 4 reps with a spotter or whatever. And then really risking snapping your shit up and getting hurt, because the bigger the exercise, especially if it's free weight exercises, the bigger the risk of the injury. And that's the biggest drawback with that heavy duty style of training, is trying to push yourself and get your entire muscle stimulation in that one absolute failure all out set. I don't think it's worth it, right? For whatever benefit you may gain from it, I think there's a lot more drawbacks to it. And this is something that I've always said. The only thing, there's one thing that will set you back in your training. That's it. One thing. And it's an injury. Like if you skip a workout, you say, I'm tired, I'm lazy, I'm not going to do anything today, and I blow off the workout. Is that going to set you back? Not really, because you can always go to the gym and train again the next day. If you do an easy workout, like you go in there and you pussy fart around and you don't do anything hard or heavy and you stop all your sets short of failure, is that going to set you back? Not really, because you can go back the next day and train harder. Like you can still go back. You can still keep going. Even when we look at the nutrition side, like if you blow your diet and have a big old cheat meal, like is that going to set you back? Well, it may be a little bit calorie-wise in the moment, but you can always get back on track for your very next meal. Like you can always start again. That's what I'm getting at. So if you skip a workout, you do an easy workout, you blow your diet or whatever, like big deal, because you can always start again. You can always resume the very next day. If you go in there and you get injured, you tear your pec because you benched absolute failure and beyond and blew your pec out. You're not going to the gym the next day, right? You might not be going to the gym for the next month or longer until you get surgery and get that whole thing repaired, and then you got to go through the rehab process. Like the only thing that can set you back is an injury. That's it. Right. The other stuff is like they can hinder or delay your progress or not optimize it, but they're not really setting you back long term. Right. It's just a little bump in the road, but you can always start again. An injury, that's a major setback. It's not just a bump in the road. Like that's a swift kick to the nuts. It's like, no, man, you're out for the count. Right. You got to recover from this injury, which may take weeks, months, a year, or sometimes you may never fully recover from it. Like I literally have injuries that I've had back when I was in my 20s that I'm still haunted by today, right? I've shared this before. Like back when I was 28 years old, I had a big tear in my back, right in my right arm, right in the tricep lat tie-in area. There's a gap. I can feel the tendons there. There's no muscle in my armpit. I have a gap there because I tore a muscle in my back when I was 28 years old, and I've never been able to lift as heavy since, right? Because of that muscle tear. So injuries are the one thing that will set you back more than anything. So that is the only real drawback to this whole heavy duty style of training. The principles, the philosophy, I mean, I agree with a lot of it. Now, some of the stuff I think Mike really was overkill with, like the whole recovery stuff, thinking that you needed all these rest days to fully recover. Like in some of the more extreme cases, he was having guys like work out once a week. And I think like, you can do more volume than that. Right? You can do more volume than once a week and make progress. Now, with that being said, I actually acknowledged this earlier in the week. You can get by with low volume workouts. As I mentioned, some of my coaching students, they're doing 2 workouts a week and still making progress. That kind of fits in line with what Mike Mentzer was talking about. So it can work. Is it optimal? I think optimal in terms of muscle growth would probably be 3 to 4 workouts a week, somewhere in that range, depending on the individual. Right. I think that's the sweet spot. In my situation, I always found I made my best muscle gains for strength and hypertrophy when I was working out every other day. So 1 day of strength training, next day off. 1 day of strength training, next day off. And having that full day of rest and recovery in between each workout really allowed me to maximize the recovery process. And I felt strong and energetic when I went to the gym. And if I tried to do too much, like I was work out for 4 or 5 days in a row or 6 days a week, the old school approach, like 6 days in the gym, 1 day off, I found like after a few days of consistent training, I was burnt out, and I just couldn't push myself to the same degree. And I find that if I have a day off in between each weight training workout, I do get better results and better recovery. And a lot of my coaching students that I've worked with, this is a common thing we see. So, everyone's body is individual and unique. Like some people have higher levels of recovery. Some people are not pushing themselves to the same degree of intensity, so they can probably handle more frequent workouts. But if you're pushing in a progressive overload fashion, every other day is ideal, and you don't need to go one set to absolute failure. It's okay to do 2 to 3 sets, pushing hard, but leaving a rep in reserve, right? That's the way I look about it. All right, so hopefully that was helpful, Adrian. I know it's probably a long-winded answer, but that was my thoughts. You asked my thoughts and you got them. There we go. Robert's saying, I've been able to do upper lower body each twice a week. Good. And if you're able to do that and it's working for you, then by all means keep going. And that would be an ideal split as well. So like, for example, you do upper body one day, lower body the next, take a full day off, and then do upper body, lower body, take a full day off. That would work fine. Like a lot of times when people are doing something like that, they'll probably do like Monday, Tuesday, take Wednesday off, Thursday, Friday, take the weekends off and start again. That could certainly work fine. We have Rob joining in. Another Rob. Says, I got a question about the bench press. I saw someone who was adamant about not doing flat bench press, but to raise to 15 degrees. What's your say? It depends. Like maybe this particular person who doesn't want to do a flat bench press, maybe they can't do a flat bench press due to some mobility issues, shoulder issues, whatever, and they prefer an incline or a low incline in this case. Saying that nobody should do flat bench press, that's a crock of shit, because obviously, like if someone's a competitive powerlifter, that's 1/3 of your exercises right there, the flat bench press. Right, that is a huge one. That's the key press movement. So saying that never do the flat bench press, well, you just factored out every power lifter in the world. No, I mean, I don't agree with that. Like people saying never do this exercise or always do this exercise or whatever. It depends. It depends on the situation, right? I'm sure if we sat down and talked to this person who's adamant to not doing flat bench presses, they probably have a reason for it that is suitable to them and their circumstances and their situation. But does that mean that their circumstances and their situation applies to every other person on the face of the earth? Frig, no, it doesn't. Right? So take that stuff with a grain of salt. Like when people have these all or nothing approaches, like you always do this or never do that, like, take it with a grain of salt, right? You got to come up with your own solutions and answers. I mean, that might be ideal for them, but it doesn't mean that that's the right thing for everybody. What else we got there? We have Robert is joining in live. Welcome, Robert. Glad to have you joining. Lots of Roberts today. The Robert Show. We have Steven asking, would landmine exercises for the center chest be good too? I actually made a video dedicated to Steven yesterday. I posted it. It was exercises for the inner chest, and I shared some that I recommended. The peak contraction exercises and exercises that really allow you to emphasize hitting the inner chest. He was wondering about the landmine, and I think what you're referring to is the landmine press, where you like probably kneel down and you're doing almost like a chest / shoulder press, or an incline press, I should say, with the landmine. That can emphasize a bit more the inner chest, because when you use the closer grip, you're getting that as you're pressing it out, you do tend to feel a bit more contraction in the inner pecs, versus if you're doing a wider grip, like a traditional barbell bench press or dumbbell bench press where your hands are wider. So you will probably feel more of this inner chest. The only thing with the landmine is it's sometimes hard to get into position with that, and the limiting factor sometimes is getting into position. Like with a bench press, for example, you have the uprights to help you get in position so you can handle maximum weight. With the landmine, picking it up and getting into position may be a bit awkward, but you can certainly use that. If you like that exercise and it works for you, you find that it gives you a good contraction, hey, by all means, go for it. Right. Another one that you might want to look into as well, obviously you can do closer grip bench presses, that's fine. But dumbbell bench presses with the dumbbells together. So like hold the dumbbells parallel and literally have the bells together as close as you can and do it that way. And it kind of works in a similar fashion to the landmine in that situation. But you'll probably be able to handle more weight in a more stable fashion because you're laying on the bench versus doing the landmine where you're freestanding and you have to balance and stabilize yourself as well as getting the weight up into position. So, I'm not saying that it's a bad exercise, but there's other exercises that may allow you to maximize the chest stimulation. But give it a shot. I mean, if it works for you, go for it, right? It's really personal preference, right? And the thing I mentioned in that video that I posted yesterday, it is the most recent video up on my channel if you want to go check it out. When it comes to building the chest, there really is no such thing as a center chest or a lower chest or an upper chest. Like anytime you do a chest exercise, all the chest fibers get activated. So like if you do a flat bench press, all your chest is getting activated. If you do an incline press, all your chest is getting activated. Right? If you do a cable crossover fly, all your chest is getting activated. Like it's all those muscles contract. It's not like you can just pinpoint, oh, I only want to contract the inner chest or I only want to contract the upper. Like, no, the entire chest contracts. It's just certain movements you'll probably feel a little bit more emphasis depending on the position of the exercise. So for example, like if it's a fully stretched exercise, like a dumbbell fly, okay, because it's fully stretched, now you're probably going to feel a bit more in the outer chest area because you're stretching it out, but still the entire chest is working regardless. Same thing when you're doing a peak contraction move, like a pec deck or a cable crossover. You might feel a little bit more emphasis in the center, but the entire chest, all those fibers are still contracting and being activated. So if you want to build the inner chest, the upper chest, the lower chest, outer, whatever, build a bigger chest. Right? Just get bigger and stronger all over, and that will go a long way. And this applies to virtually any muscle group. I mean, it's not just the chest. Like same thing. Like if somebody says, "Well, I want to build up the teardrop on my quads," just build bigger quads, and you'll build up the teardrop. Or people say, "I want to build a bigger bicep peak," just build bigger biceps. You'll get a bigger peak. Like the muscles all contract regardless of what exercise you're doing. Right. So just build bigger and stronger in that muscle group in general. And then the number one thing that's going to really give you the lines and the definition is losing the body fat, because you could have the most developed chest and be massive and strong and everything else. And if that's covered with a layer of fat, you're just going to look like you got soft, mushy moves. There's no going to be center chest lines or any of this stuff. Like it's just going to be, it's just all covered in marshmallows, right? It's all soft and mushy. You got to lose the body fat. And then once you lose the body fat, you'll see the lines and the definition and all that improve. Now, it's not going to be instant, right? Like that's something I have to emphasize here as well. Like, let's say you're 50 pounds overweight and you lose 10 pounds. You're going to look the same. Like you're going to, because you're still got 40 pounds of excess fat on you. It's just you're 10 pounds smaller. And a lot of times when people are really overweight and they lose a little bit of body fat, then they get caught up in well, I'm losing muscle because I'm lighter, I'm smaller, but I don't look any different. So I must be losing muscle. No, you're not losing muscle. It's just that you got so much fat that if we scrape off the surface 10 pounds, you still got a lot of fat left underneath. You got to start burning all that body fat till you get down to the so-called last 10 pounds. That's when it can make a massive difference. And this is the level, like when you see fitness models and competitive bodybuilders and people like that, when they get down to those last 10 pounds, like it can mean like a night and day difference. And I know like back when I was competing in bodybuilding, the transformation that you'd make in the final month was crazy. Like you could literally see in the matter of a week, you could see a noticeable change in definition and hardness. And then when you're getting down to the final weeks, you could even see it day by day, right? And then when you're fine tuning and then getting down to water manipulation in the final, like, a couple of days before the show, like someone manipulates their water and hits their peak just right, you could see a noticeable change there again. But that becomes when the skin is so thin And then, you just see all the muscle definition in detail, like something like a virtual anatomy chart in that sense, right? That's the ultimate. Now, I mean, I'm not saying you have to get that ultra lean, but if you've got extra 50 pounds on, and I know a lot of people watching this got an extra 50 plus pounds on, don't expect to see muscle definition, right? Regardless of how big or how strong or how developed your muscles are, they're just going to be covered in a layer of mush, right? Until you lose that mush, you're not going to see the lines and definition. All right, what else we got there? Crispin is joining us. Welcome, Crispin. Glad to have you tuning in. Disciples, have you heard of not releasing testosterone at least 2 weeks prior to competition? Releasing your testosterone. No. I'm not sure what you mean by that, right? I've heard of people talking about abstaining from, chasing the abstaining from sexual activity prior to athletic sports, and that's kind of a hit or miss thing. And I don't know if that's what you refer to, not releasing your testosterone. And if we're getting onto that topic, what you're releasing when you have sexual activity is not testosterone. It's something else. I know testosterone is kind of related to it. You want to have high testosterone in order for everything to function down there, but you ain't releasing testosterone down there. You'd never put that in a syringe and inject it, I tell you that. Anyway, have I heard of not releasing testosterone prior to a competition? I think a lot of that stuff is BS, quite honestly. Like, let's just, I'll try and decipher your question here and have a little conversation. Let's say you're not going out and having sex before a competition. Like a lot of people say, you want to save that up, right? You don't. I think where coaches were coming from with that whole idea is they didn't want their athletes out chasing girls and staying out late before a competition. Not so much the activity itself. Now, you can have your own opinions on it, but I don't think if somebody has a romp in the hay and gets their jollies and then falls asleep afterwards, I don't think that's going to hinder your performance the next day. If anything, it might help you sleep better. Right? Because what does a guy do after he releases his testosterone? Right? He wants to go lie down and fall asleep. Right? So that might allow you to have a great night's sleep, and then you might get up and perform well the next day. And plus, you don't have that added frustration pent up in your system. I guess some people think that added frustration pent up in their system is beneficial, but I don't think so. I'd much rather have that frustration released, if you will, right? And then focus on the task at hand. But I think where they're coming from the athletic point of view is not so much the act itself, but I think it's everything that goes along with it. Like if you're young guys and you're going out to nightclubs and you're chasing girls and you're probably drinking alcohol and staying up late and all this kind of stuff, that's going to hinder your performance the next day because you just didn't get a good night's sleep. And especially if it's combined with alcohol, that's definitely not going to help your performance. But if you're the act of releasing your testosterone in and of itself, and I'm using testosterone in quotations here because it's not actual testosterone, I don't think that's going to hinder your competition. All right, where else? Robert, another Robert. Gee, we got this again. I said this was the Robert show. Hello, Lee and everyone. Anyone have experience using pre-workouts to help them push through those days where they don't want to work out? I need to get up an hour earlier, especially on my recovery days. Okay. Pre-workouts. I have used pre-workouts in the past, and I have mixed opinions on them. They do work. All right. So if you're using any type of pre-workout, and usually it's caffeine and something else. It's probably a combination of different amino acids or different stimulants, different whatevers. It could be like beta alanine and carnitine and who knows, different B vitamins, all this, caffeine and a concoction of other stuff, right, to help improve your energy. But the big one, right, the kind of like the be all end all, the 80-20, if you will, the 80% that's giving you the bang for your buck is the caffeine. That's pretty much what a pre-workout is. It's caffeine and a few other things sprinkled in there as well. Yes, they do work, right? I mean, if you are feeling a bit tired and lethargic or whatever, you can certainly have, a high caffeine pre-workout, and that should help. The only drawback is it's easy to overuse it and overkill it. And what I find with a lot of the pre-workouts nowadays is it's almost like a pissing match to say, well, okay, mine has 200 milligrams of caffeine. Well, mine has 300, mine has 400, mine has 500. And it's just, and they're just making them stronger and stronger. And like when I've used pre-workouts, I haven't used them I have not had a pre-workout in well over a year. I know that. But when I did use them, like I couldn't even use a full serving. I would literally use like a half a serving, and that would be like plenty, because it was just so high in caffeine. It was just overkill. So what I do now, if I want a pre-workout, is I will have a cup of coffee, and that's usually my go-to. I like to have a coffee, and I'm moderate with my coffee consumption / caffeine consumption, because it's easy to fall into the trap of consuming more and more. And then what often happens is when you get consuming more and more, it's not actually increasing your energy or giving you a boost or an edge. It's becoming your new maintenance. And now you need it just to perform at maintenance. Like a lot of people, they think, oh, coffee gives me energy. But they're not very energetic even when they drink their coffee. They need their coffee or their caffeine or their pre-workout just to get them up to what would be considered maintenance, just a function, if you will. It's not necessarily giving them an edge or a boost. And once you're at that stage, that's a nasty place to be in, because then you're reliant on the caffeine just to get your ass through the day. And a lot of people are at that stage. I was at that stage for a while. Like I was consuming pre-workouts and I was drinking coffee, and my caffeine consumption was up around 1,000 milligrams a day for a while, which in my opinion is ridiculous. That's insanely high, even though I know people who've consumed way the hell more. Like I had a friend of mine who was caught into the same trap, and his caffeine consumption, when we actually measured it out, was over 2,000 milligrams a day, which is like astronomical, right? And that was just a normal day. That's not a high energy day. This was like 2,000 milligrams of caffeine just to get through, a normal day. And so like you become tolerant, and you build up that intolerance to it very quickly. So if you're at that stage, you probably want to tailor it down. And the way that I drink caffeine now is I limit myself to 2 coffee a day, and I try to have them early in the day. And I try to time it when I need it. So like I'll have one before workout, and that's usually when I consume it. Like if I'm going to do some exercise, or if I'm going to do some intense deep work that requires mental focus, and then I'll probably have a coffee there. But for the rest of the day, I drink decaf. So what I have here, I'm actually drinking a decaf coffee. So I like the taste of coffee, right? I like the taste of the bean, but I've switched to decaf, and I find that allows me to have the same coffee pleasure of drinking coffee without the caffeine drawbacks, because you want to be careful with it, right? A little goes a long way. It does work. It does help. Right? I mean, you can go on Google and search all the performance benefits of caffeine, and they're out there. It's well documented and studied and blah, blah, blah. But you don't want to go overkill with it. And that's what a lot of pre-workouts is overkill. So for me, if this was regular coffee, which it's not, it's decaf, but a regular cup of coffee is my pre-workout of choice. And I find that works wonders. It's just enough of a caffeine edge to help, that mental pick me up, a little bit of extra focus, but not so much to, cause me to have the jitters and the overkill. Right, which sometimes I did get with the pre-workouts. It was just too much caffeine. And then when you consume too much caffeine, it very often hinders your sleep quality in the night, which then, if you don't get a good sleep, then that hinders your energy the next day, and it's just this downward spiral. All right, so use with caution. And on those days where you really don't feel like working out, you have to listen to your body and say, like, why don't you feel like working out? I mean, because sometimes that's a legit reason. Like if you've been training hard and you've been pushing yourself in the gym and training with progressive overload and constantly pushing, and you feel like tired and you need a day off, it's okay to take a day off, right? Like there's nothing wrong with that. You need rest days. The problem with this is if you're always taking days off and you're always lazy and you're not doing jack shit, and you're like, oh, I don't feel like working out. Well, did you work out? I haven't been to the gym in the last 2 months and I don't feel like going again today. Okay, you probably need to just do something to give yourself a kick in the ass and go, because you're not overtrained if you're not working out regularly, right? Like, that's most people who don't feel like going to the gym is because they don't go to the gym, period. But for those of you who are serious, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this video right now are serious and you're consistent with the gym, if you have a day where you're, man, I'm just feeling tired, I don't feel like going to the gym, maybe you should listen to your body and take a day off, rest up, and then maybe the next day you'll feel more energized and have a really good workout versus forcing yourself to go to the gym and have a shitty workout, right? So, you listen to your body. And this comes back to what I was talking about earlier, and I mentioned, like, I found from a strength and hypertrophy point of view, and for those of you who are wondering what that is, hypertrophy is just a fancy way of saying muscle building. So from a strength and muscle building point of view, I found every other day, 3 days a week, was the optimal scenario for myself and for a lot of my coaching students. Work out one day, take the next day off. Work out one day, take the next day off. Those off days are critical to your progress, right? You don't want to neglect them. Like, this whole idea, I'm going to work out every day, it sounds cool, but it's not practical. Like, nobody can push themselves hard every single day for the long term. Like, you are going to burn out eventually. You need a rest day in there, and the rest days are going to help with your recovery, help with your growth, and allow you to push harder on the days that you do train. So hopefully that helps, Robert. And there's a lot to unpack with these things. Like, a lot of times people start off with a simple question, but like, once you start going down the rabbit hole, there's very often a lot to unpack. All right, who else we got there? Steven is laughing. Maybe he's laughing about releasing testosterone up above. I don't know. Dave saying, thank you, much appreciated. You're welcome, my friend. We have Richard saying, oh, I guess this is replying to Bruce. He's saying, follow some Jane Fonda or Denise Austin workouts. There you go, Bruce. That'll get your cardio going. Just be careful you don't release your testosterone while you're watching them. What else we got? Frank is joining in. Hello, Frank. And we have Lee Dunnigan's got a question saying, after eating huge amounts of chocolate for over 10 years. Why couldn't you just say for over? I don't know. Anyway, huge amounts of chocolates for over 10 years every evening. I broke the habit by using your frozen berry smoothie video to take away the evening sugar cravings. I'm chocolate free for over a year now. Way to go. Good for you. I love that. Like, you didn't really give up the snacking habit. You just swapped out a better snack choice. And I mean, chocolate obviously is, I don't care what all the health nuts say. Oh, dark chocolate is good for you. It's high in antioxidants. Like, come on, right? It's freaking chocolate, right? The little bit of health benefits you're probably going to get from it if you're eating, as in Lee says, huge amounts of chocolate, right? That's not good for you. All right. So, I mean, you've swapped that out for some frozen berries. And what I meant by that, I got a video showing it's like a high protein ice cream. That's what I call it. But it's basically a big smoothie mixed up with protein powder and frozen berries. And I mix it up so thick that you eat it with a spoon, right? So it tastes like frozen dessert, kind of like ice cream, frozen yogurt, sherbet type of taste texture. It's sweet, it's cool, it's delicious. I mean, you can eat a lot of it because it's basically pure protein, very low in fat, very low in carbs. I mean, just the carbs you get from frozen berries, which is not a lot, by the way. Like strawberries and blackberries and blueberries, even if you mix up a lot of them in the blender, it's still very low in carb, but it gives you a lot of volume and very filling, very tasty. And it's like you're just sitting down and eating a big blender full of dessert, but it's basically pure protein. But that's awesome. I'd love to hear that. Good for you. Who else we got there? Khalid joining in, says, glad to see you. What is the difference between whey isolate and hydro whey? Yeah, you'll have to Google it. It's basically how the protein is isolated, broken down. Like, there's all these different manufacturing and processing ways of going about separating the protein. And because, like, with protein in general, like whey protein. The three main types, you've got the isolate, the concentrate, and then the blend, which is a base. So isolate means it's isolated protein. So 90% protein for powder weight. So what I mean by that is if you have 100 grams of powder, 90 grams is protein. The remaining 10% is probably fat and lactose. Just with concentrate, it's 70%. So if you have 100 grams of concentrate, 70% is protein, 70 grams would be protein. The remaining 30 grams would be fat and lactose. A blend is a 50-50 mix of each. So it's usually 80%, a little bit of isolate, a little bit of concentrate mixed together to give you the blend. The hydro is another form of isolating the whey, right? Again, I'd have to Google search it myself to fully understand it, but it's just another method of processing the whey protein. The actual protein itself is probably no different, when it actually enters your body. Like if you consume 50 grams of whey isolate, and you actually look at the 50 grams of protein from isolate versus say 50 grams of protein from concentrate, or 50 grams of protein from hydrolyzed whey, you're still getting 50 grams of protein, right? Like 50 grams of protein is 50 grams of protein once it's digested and absorbed and in the body. The methods of extracting that protein and all that, I'm not saying it makes zero difference, but it's minuscule. What matters the most is the actual amount of protein that you're consuming and the consistency that you're consuming it. The actual type of protein, it's not going to make or break. Like you could consume brand A, like let's just say, okay, brand A is isolated protein. Brand B is concentrated protein. Brand C is hydrolyzed protein. Like as long as you're meeting your protein intake needs, which an ideal number is to have 1 gram of protein per pound of your goal target body weight. So let's just keep it simple. If you want to weigh 200 pounds, have 200 grams of protein per day. As long as you're getting that from a combination of foods or supplements or however you do it, and you're doing that consistently, you got your bases covered, right? Like whether you swap that out with brand X or brand Y, isolated or concentrated, hydrolyzed, it really doesn't make much difference at the end of the day, as long as you're meeting your protein intake needs. All right, what else we got there? The only thing I will say, I'm just going back to Khalid's question there. What one do you enjoy drinking or consuming? That is what I would focus on the most, because when it comes to protein powders, obviously you want one that has good nutritional value, obviously, because some protein powders are crap, right? I mean, it's really like a glorified cake mix. It's like it's like just a sugar and carb fat concoction with some protein added in, right? Like sometimes that's what a weight gainer very often is. It's just like sugar and fat and protein all together. So when it comes to protein, as long as it is an actual good protein, the next thing that you want to focus on is the taste of it. Does it sit well with your stomach, and do you enjoy it? Because if you enjoy it and it sits well with your stomach, you're going to consume it more frequently. If you don't enjoy it, like it tastes like drinking cement and it sits on your stomach like a rock, or it's causing you to be bloated and gas and burp and fart and have, your stomach is churning all day, you're not going to want to drink that stuff. So the number one thing, once you settle in and say, okay, this is a good protein in terms of the nutritional value that it has, the next most important thing, and you could almost argue it's the most important thing, is how well does it taste and how well does it sit with your stomach? Because if you don't enjoy it and you can't tolerate it, then you're not going to consume it regularly, right? So it has to sit well. You have to actually enjoy it. And that's what I look for when I'm buying protein powders now. Like there's a few different brands that I know I can drink and sit well with my stomach, but I look for the ones that taste good, right? That's the most important thing. If it tastes good and I enjoy it, then I'm going to keep drinking it. If I hate, each protein shake, like I'm plugging my nose and trying to chug it down, like, whoa, I hate this stuff, I don't want to drink it. So the ones that I'm using now, it's actually a Canadian company. It's called CanadianProtein.com. If you want to, for those of you who are Canadians, you can look them up. And I use their private brand of protein powder. And the one that I use, I get their vanilla flavor, and it's just a really nice vanilla flavor protein powder. And the reason why I use that one, because it works well with like smoothies. It works well with high protein pancakes. I mix it in with like my high protein oatmeal, stuff like that. And my wife likes it and my son likes it. So we all like it. It tastes good, and we all drink it and consume it in the, the pancakes and the smoothies and the oatmeal and stuff like that. And that's why, it's because it's just one of our favorites in terms of taste and enjoyment of consuming it. And it has good nutritional profile as well. And that one happens to be, I'm not sure if it's a concentrate or a blend off the top of my head, but that's what it is. I know it's not a pure isolate. It's either a blend or a concentrate, one or the other, but it just tastes really good. And that's the one that we get. So it's from CanadianProtein.com. And I'm not sponsored by them. It's just a legit recommendation. But yeah, that's what you want to focus on the most, because if you don't like it, you ain't going to drink it, or you ain't going to drink it for long. All right, we have Carter joining in. Welcome. He says, have an awesome weekend, my friend. And I will. You have an awesome weekend too. JP saying, yo, listening to you while I finish up week 11 of your old program. Good stuff. Awesome. Hopefully you're enjoying your workout. And Jason is joining in and says, how's it going? And it is going well. Loving the Batman mask in your avatar. Says, I've been doing an upper lower on Monday, Tuesday, 2 days off, then full body on. Second, guys, I got a tickle in my throat. All right, start that again. All right. There we go. Jason says, I've been doing an upper lower on mom. I'm just reading what you wrote, man. He says, I've been doing upper lower on mom. Poor mom. Anyway, I know what you're saying. I've been doing an upper body and a lower body workout on Monday and Tuesday. Then 2 days off, then a full body on Friday. Seems like the 2 days of rest is great for me. Good stuff. All right. And I bet it's great for mom as well. Doing an upper and lower on mom. All right. What does your mom think of that? Brian's joining in. He says, have you heard of... Yes, I have. I actually heard. Have you heard of not releasing your testosterone at least 2 weeks prior to competition to hold in strength? I heard about that up here somewhere, actually. Where was it? I don't know. So where Disciples said the same thing. I don't know. Obviously, that must be you, Brian. Is it? Are you Disciples? I guess you are. All right. Where else are you? I lost my space there. My place, I should say. Rob's joining in. He says, I do all three flat, incline, and decline. I thought they were nuts anyway, but I had to ask. I do all three flat, incline. So he's talking about bench presses. I will... Personally, I do mostly flat and incline. I sometimes do decline, but with the decline, if you were to look in order of priority, I would say flat and incline are the ones you would definitely want to include. Decline is kind of optional. If you enjoy it, it works well for you, by all means. But I find like when I set up on the flat bench and I get a good expand my chest, arch the upper back, I can kind of get that decline position in a way with the flat bench. So sometimes I won't bother doing decline. Every now and then I will do it. I like the decline barbell bench press, but I'm not a fan of the decline dumbbell bench press unless you've got someone to hand you the dumbbells. Because I find, first off, getting your feet anchored into a decline bench, the foot things where you loop your feet in around and anchor yourself in. If you're trying to do that while holding on to heavy dumbbells, it's just freaking awkward. Like to get in position and then to, lean back with heavy dumbbells, do your presses, and then sit up with the heavy dumbbells and get out of the bench. I just find it's really awkward getting in and out of position for a decline dumbbell bench press unless you have someone to hand you the dumbbells. Now, if that's the case, then hey, by all means, do decline dumbbell. But I will not do it for that reason alone. But I will sometimes do the decline barbell bench press, which is a fine one, assuming that it's comfortable and works well for you. And another thing we should mention too, like all these different bench variations and angles and stuff, it's all personal preference. And sometimes some people like a really steep incline, some people like a really low incline, or same with decline, really steep decline or very low, or anything in between. So it's something you kind of have to experiment with and see what works best for you, right? Because it's not necessarily that one is right, wrong, good, or bad. It's just what feels best for your mobility, your body position, your leverages, something you really need to experiment with. All right, so what else we got? Alex is saying, sorry for the late arrival, but thank you for keeping this going. You're welcome and glad to have you joining in. Better late than never. And of course, the replay is always posted up afterwards, so you're never going to miss anything. Khalid saying, after finishing weight training, I heard it's not good to eat carbs immediately or energy drinking. You're killing growth hormone. It's good to have BCAAs or hydro whey. Then after 20 minutes, you can have carbs. What's your opinion? I think that's bullshit. It's just like the whole idea of all these timing strategies. Like I can make an argument that is the complete opposite of what you just said. And I could go find studies and people to back up that. Like, it's really not that exact of a science, because we can make up arguments for like what you just said there in terms of, when you consume carbohydrates, yeah, it can minimize growth hormone production in that situation. Because like insulin and growth hormone, like your body secretes insulin when you consume carbohydrates. Growth hormone is usually secreted more in a fasted state. Like when you go to bed at night, for example, and you're not eating anything and you get into that deep sleep, that's when your body peaks its growth hormone production. Insulin production is peaked when you eat carbohydrates. Obviously, if you're doing them synthetically, you can get both growth hormone and insulin simultaneously. And that's another can of worms. But that whole thing, because for years, the whole fitness industry was preaching the complete opposite. Like, no, as soon as you finish your workouts, have your carbs, because you want to get that insulin spike and you want to shuttle those carbs and the nutrients into the muscle cells to help optimize recovery. And then some people say it doesn't freaking matter as long as you're eating adequate food, your body's going to recover, and everything in between. So I wouldn't put much stock into that. I really wouldn't. What matters the most is ultimately what you're eating, how much you're eating. When you're eating it is of secondary importance. The most important thing is what you're eating and how much you're eating. But nutrient timing does play a role depending on certain circumstances. And I actually made a blog post talking about this and made videos talking about it. But it depends on your training situation. So if you're working out, say 3 days a week, then it doesn't matter how you go about post-workout nutrition, because you've got a full 48 hours between workouts. And in that 48 hours, you're going to have enough rest and nutrition to fully recover for your next workout, right? So you're not like on a strict timeline. As long as you eat enough food, you get enough rest, your body's going to recover and you're going to be good to go for your next workout. If someone is doing multiple workouts a day, or an athlete like in a competition or something, and they need to be able to recover and perform rapidly for repeated events. Let's just say we have a football player who does a weight training workout in the morning, and then he's got to practice in the afternoon, and he wants to maximize the recovery between that window. Yeah, you want to definitely get in some fast absorbing carbohydrates, some amino acids and things like that. So get that nourishment into your system as fast as possible to help speed up the recovery process, because you got to perform again several hours later. Or if someone's doing an athletic event where it's like an all-day type of thing, like prime example, let's say you got like a strongman competitor or power lifter or something, where they're doing events throughout the day, like especially strongman, which could last for several hours. They want to have intra-workout nutrition to keep their energy levels up and to allow them to perform optimally throughout the day. They don't want to be having these long gaps with nothing in their system, because that's going to just impact their strength and their performance. Or if you're looking at elite level endurance athletes, or just people who are doing long duration exercise, they need to have steady nutrition to keep their energy levels up. So it really depends on the individual and the situation. But this whole idea of not eating anything, thinking that it's going to help to spike your growth hormone, I don't take that with a grain of salt, because the little bit of growth hormone spike you get, it's not, first of all, it's not going to be as beneficial as actually having the nutrients in your system to help aid with the recovery, right? Like having high hormone levels with no nutrition in your system, like it's not optimal, because you want the hormones and you want the nourishment and the nutrition so that the hormones can do something with it. Like it's simply having high hormones and nothing to run on, like no amino acids or anything, or no carbs to shuttle into the muscle cells. I just take it with a grain of salt. But anyway, let's move on. In fact, if you want to check out that article, I'm just going to share it with you. It's not directly related to your specific question, but it's very similar. The concepts covered. I'm just going to go to my blog, leehayward.com, and I'm just going to post a link. It's an article that I wrote about amino acids specifically, but I think read that full thing, because the examples that I give in that article would help to give some clarification to your question there, especially about the nutrient timing. And that's in the second half of the article, where I really break it down, how the whole timing aspect can play a role. So this is for Khalid. I'm just going to say amino acid. Jeez, I can't even type. Article. Jesus, I'm typing too fast and I'm screwing up. That's why. Slow down. All right, you want to do it right? Take your time. So I just said amino acid article, and I posted a link to it, so you can go check that out. All right, where else was I? Brian is saying, can you take HRT and TRT at the same time? It's the same. Hormone replacement therapy, testosterone replacement therapy. Well, it may be the same and it may not. It depends on you and your prescription. Like very often, if you go to a clinic to get hormone replacement therapy, that will include testosterone replacement therapy, and it may include other things. Like testosterone is just one thing. It's testosterone. But if you're going to a good clinic, and they'll probably look at all your hormones and then give you therapy or supplementation or whatever you want to call it based on your individual situation. Like I know one of my coaching students, I did a video featuring that a while back. He received, it was testosterone, and it was growth hormone and something else. I'm not sure if it was HCG or something like that, but bottom line, like it can include other things. Like sometimes it might include thyroid as well. Like if you have thyroid issues, so it might be testosterone and growth hormone and thyroid, or it might be testosterone and growth hormone. And if there's side effects from the testosterone, there could be like it converting to estrogen. There might be some anti-estrogen hormones in there. So hormone replacement therapy is like a broader umbrella, which includes testosterone replacement therapy, but it can include other hormones, just as in hormone replacement therapy. Testosterone replacement therapy is just testosterone. It's just one thing, but you may need therapy for other areas. So yeah, like HRT is TRT. It's sometimes people use those terms universal, but just to clarify, testosterone is just the testosterone. Hormone replacement therapy could include testosterone and growth hormone and anti-estrogens and thyroid and blah, 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 whatever other hormones that you need to, we could even look at insulin, right, as hormone replacement, because that's a hormone. A diabetic who's on insulin, I mean, in a way, that's hormone replacement therapy, because they're replacing the hormone insulin that their body's not producing enough on its own naturally. So like all these things can kind of been put together under the umbrella of hormone replacement therapy, whereas testosterone is just one hormone. So yeah, but a lot of times the terms are used interchangeably, but I just want to kind of clarify it for you. But yeah, someone could be on hormone replacement therapy, which includes testosterone replacement therapy. Alex is saying, quick question regarding warm-up sets. 51 years old. How many warm-up sets would you recommend for a set of squats? As many as you need. There's really no magic number. It depends on your personal mobility and what you feel you need and how heavy you're training. Like, and this applies for all exercises, not just squats, but the heavier you're working up to, the bigger the exercise, the more warm-up sets you're going to need. Like, let's just say you're taking a beginner who can squat 100 pounds. And technically, I mean, that's even being aggressive there, because I know a lot of beginners that I'm coaching in the gym personally who can't squat 100 pounds, right? So, but just using that as a number, right, to keep the number simple. So let's say we have a novice lifter, someone who's new to lifting, and their working set squat is 100 pounds. They might be able to do a set with the barbell, 45 pounds. They'll probably put the next set, they might up it to 75 pounds, and then they probably do their working set with 100 pounds. So they only need like a couple progressively heavier warm-up sets and then jump right into their top working set. Someone who's more advanced will probably need a lot more warm-up sets. So if you have an advanced bodybuilder or powerlifter or someone who's, say, squatting 400 pounds, right? They're probably going to first start off with an empty barbell set just to go through the motions, get the kinks and cracks out of the knees. And then they're probably going to go like one plate per side, like 135. Probably go 2 plates per side, 225. And then they probably go 3 plates a side, and then probably go 365, and then eventually work up to 405. So they're doing more warm-up sets because they're working up to heavier weight, and they need to adapt their body to the heavier sets, because they're demanding more of themselves, and they're able to generate more force and power, and they need to progressively build up to that. Where someone who's not as experienced, they can't generate as much force and power. They're not lifting as heavy a weight, so they can kind of get away with fewer warm-up sets. So it depends how many warm-up sets really depend on you and your circumstances. Also, if you have any injuries, like in your 50s, there's probably a few more aches and pains and clicks and creaks in the knees and the hips and the lower back and whatever than there was, say, in your 20s. So it's a wise idea to err on the side of more warm-up sets versus not enough. And a tip that I want to give you for your warm-up sets, you don't need to go overkill on the reps. Like a lot of people, they say, well, I don't want to do too many warm-up sets because I'm going to burn myself out on my warm-ups and not have any strength left for my working set. Well, just do fewer reps. Like, let's say you're going to do your top heavyweight of squats is like 300 pounds for 10 reps. I'm just pulling numbers out of my ass. I don't know how heavy you can lift, but let's just say it was 300 pounds for 10 reps. And you're doing your warm-ups. Like, it's okay to stop your warm-ups at 5 reps. Like, you don't need to be burning yourself out with endless reps on the warm-up sets, but you still want to do them. You still want to take the weight on your back. You still want to go through a full range of motion to warm up the joints, tendons, and ligaments, and to condition yourself for that weight, and do so in a progressive fashion with the warm-up sets. But it's okay to stop, like, hey, just do sets of 5. Like, that's fine. And then for your top heavy set, go all out and push it for a hard, heavy set of 10 reps. Because that's something I hear, like a common complaint. People like, well, I don't want to warm up because I'm going to exhaust myself and I'm not going to have strength for my workout, my working set. Just do fewer. I mean, heck, even if you got to do singles, like, I'd rather you do that than skip the warm up altogether. And in fact, back when I was competing in powerlifting, I know this is many years back now, we would literally work up this, once you got the initial warm-ups out of the way, like the empty barbell and the lightweight warm-up sets, and then as you were doing the progressively heavier ones, building up to your top working weight, a lot of times I would just literally do a single rep, right? Like, I remember back in the day, the most I ever bench pressed was 445 pounds. That was my all-time personal best. I did that back in 2005. And what I would do, first set, like empty barbell, literally just go through the motions, then 1 plate, and then I'd probably do 185, 225. And for those, I would probably do 10 reps for the first couple sets. Then I do 5 reps. And then once I got up to like 275 or 300, especially once I hit 315, that's the one. Once I hit 315 and then 365 and then building up to the 400s and beyond, I was literally just doing a single rep. Just take the bar out of the rack, just do a nice slow controlled rep, boom, rack it, up the weight, single rep racket, but I was still getting the tension and taking the movement through a full range of motion, letting the body adapt to the heavier weight and building up the mental confidence and the technique to handle the heavier weight. So, I mean, you can do low rep warm-up sets and still get benefit from them. Like, that's a common mistake. A lot of people think that the warm-up sets have to be high reps. No, I mean, a lot of times you're just wasting energy at that stage, right? The most important thing is just to have the load on the joints, tendons, and ligaments, and for the body to experience it. Like, you're still getting the benefit of a warm-up from that. So that's a good strategy. But when it comes to how many, it's as many as you need. There's no right or wrong answer here. And error on the side of more, especially the older you get. More warm-ups, the better. Okay. All right. I'm going to get ready and clue this up because we've been going for an hour and 25 minutes. I always promise an hour and I go over. That's me. All right. So I'm going to clue it up. Geez, there's all kinds of other questions here. There's questions I would love to jump into and answer, but you know what? I'm not going to, because I'm going to answer this one last question, and that'll explain why I'm cluing this video chat up. Will you be watching the Super Bowl this weekend? I'm actually not, because this weekend is my wife's birthday, and I want to go spend the evening now with my wife. And we're technically, her birthday is tomorrow, but we're going to stretch it out and have a birthday weekend. So I'm going to clue up the video chat now and spend some time with the family, and we'll be in touch next week. All right, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video chat. I always enjoy doing these. Get some great questions and great interaction. And the replay of this will be posted up afterwards. So if you didn't catch the whole thing, you can always catch up on the replay. And if you want to catch up on any of the other replays, they're posted up under the live tab, the live stream tab up on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel. In the meantime, if you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe. And if you have any questions that wasn't covered here, or if there's anything that I can help you with, feel free to reach out to me, whether you reach out to me through Facebook, send me an email. We can chat that way. And stay tuned for next week. I'll be back here again, same time, same place, with another Live at 5 Q&A. Have yourself a good one. Take care. Over and out.